So how would you respond to these US media reports that a Trump administration official has argued that Donald Trump stopped Israel from executing Ayatollah Khamenei?
That's complete nonsense. It's fake news.
So US has no role in the Israel-Iran conflict right now?
No, of course it has. It has a huge role.
Has Israel been able to stall the Iranian nuclear program completely, as we are talking on 16 June today?
We had to act upon in order to prevent our extermination, okay?
But we see Iranian missiles landing in the Tel Aviv. The allegations that Iron Dome failed, is it that so? Israel let a few missiles drop so that it can raise the escalation ladder.
Iron Dome is not the answer for ballistic missiles. Iron Dome can work against threats that are in the short term. They can work against drones, against rockets and missiles, but not against ballistic missiles.
Israel have been the center of the allegations carrying out these attacks and stopping the human aid reaching to Gaza. How do you respond to such allegations, sir?
Well, first of all, what is happening in Gaza is no doubt very tragic, but it's completely and uniquely connected to the fact that you had Hamas aggression and that Hamas is hiding behind civilians and actually abusing any rule, any norm that was written by civilization in order to keep fighting us.
नमस्ते, मेरा नाम सिद्धांत है। लल्लन टॉप के इस खास इंटरव्यू में हम बातचीत करेंगे इजराइल और ईरान में चल रहे संघर्ष पे। हमारे साथ हमारे सवालों का जवाब देने के लिए मौजूद होंगे भारत में इजराइल के एम्बेसडर रौवेन अजार। सर, लल्लन टॉप में आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है।
नमस्ते।
नमस्ते। इंटरव्यू की शक्ल थोड़ी सी बदली हुई अगर आपको दिख रही हो, इसलिए बता दें तो हमारे साथ जो बगल में बैठे हैं उनका नाम है प्रोफेसर मुश्ताक हुसैन, जो बिट्स लॉ स्कूल मुंबई में इंटरनेशनल रिलेशन पढ़ाते हैं। लल्लन टॉप में मास्टर क्लास और भी अन्य मौक़ों पे आप उन्हें देखते सुनते रहते हैं। इजराइल और ईरान में क्या हुआ, छोटा रिकैप। 12 और 13 जून की दरमियानी रात इजराइल ने ईरान के कुछ साइट्स पे बैलिस्टिक मिसाइल से हमले किए, एयर स्ट्राइक्स भी की, जिसके बाद ईरान की तरफ से भी हमले किए गए। दोनों पक्षों के एक दूसरे पर इल्ज़ाम है। इन सब के बीच में है फिलिस्तीन, उसके नागरिक, गजा में चल रही जंग, वेस्ट बैंक पर कब्जे के इल्ज़ाम जो लगते हैं इजराइल पे। इन सारे मुद्दों को हम इस बातचीत में एड्रेस करने की कोशिश करेंगे। So, Mr. Ambassador, my first curiosity, you would say, is that I was reading about you and I heard that you know at least 3 languages like Hebrew, Spanish and Arabic, and you are learning Hindi.
Yes, English, of course.
English, of course, yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to learn Hindi. Not easy. I started before I arrived.
Okay.
And now, because of the intensivity of the job, it doesn't leave me much time to study. But I hope I'll have time some point, to study, because language is like the gateway to a culture, to a civilization. And it's important for me to learn languages. I like it as well.
Okay. Coming to the recent events we are talking about, first I will take you to the Israel, how attacked Iran on 13th June.
Yeah.
I'm referring to your interview to ANI, and there you said that in the last few months, Iran has sped up the pace of enriched uranium, and they had uranium at least for 9 nuclear bombs. There was a clandestine group that was working to assemble this uranium on a ballistic missile in form of a nuclear weapon. Israel could be attacked. You shared this fear or apprehension, whatever you would term it, and by the tone of the interview, I could figure that this was the pretext of the Israel attacks on the Iran. Please elaborate on this, sir.
Well, it's not the pretext, it's the reason. Okay. Unfortunately, Iran has built a program to exterminate the state of Israel. So the leaders of Iran, for years, have been not only talking about that. People thought that this is kind of empty rhetoric. But no, it wasn't an empty rhetoric. They were actually building the means and building a plan to annihilate the state of Israel, to exterminate us. And they had actually 3 layers to this plan. The first 2 and most existential were the nuclear plan. They invested tens of billions of dollars in mastering uranium enrichment. And In addition to that, they worked until 2003 on a weaponization program that they freezed, but now they were actually exploiting the time that they had to negotiate with President Trump, with the Americans, in order to sneak out to a nuclear weapon. They had a group that actually was working to build a nuclear weapon. And they believed that by doing that, they would have the capability to basically exterminate the state of Israel. One of the leaders once said that Israel is a one-bomb state because we are very small. Okay? The second track that they developed is the track of the ballistic missile production. Okay? So they have thousands of ballistic missiles, and they were planning to build in the next 3 years another 10,000, in the next 6 years another 10,000, like 20,000 ballistic missiles. So imagine if you do the math, in each ballistic missiles you have 1,000 kilograms of TNT, okay? 1,000 ballistic missiles is like a kiloton bomb, the same kiloton bomb that was, in terms of power, that was actually thrown on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It's like a nuclear weapon. So it has the capability, with 20,000 ballistic missiles, you can erase a state like Israel very easily. And when you fire them at once, even the best missile defense system in the world won't be able to stop it. So we sense that we are at the crossroads, that we cannot continue dealing with that. We cannot continue to trust the free will or the goodwill of powers in the world to negotiate something that will stop the Iranians. Nothing was going to stop them unless we take action. So that's why we chose this time. In addition to that, we were having a window of opportunity because in the past, the Iranians had all these proxies that could defend them. Okay? They built these 6 armies that were actually working on their behalf. Hamas, Hezbollah, which was the most powerful one, they had accumulated 150,000 missiles directed at Israel. They had the Assad regime that had one of the biggest conventional armies in the Middle East, okay? And the Iranian militias there. And of course, the militias in Iraq, in Yemen. So the fact that we have been able to degrade Hamas and Hezbollah and kick out the Iranians, following that, the Iranians were kicked out of Syria, that gave us a clean path to start dealing with Iran directly. Especially after Iran attacked us last April, and then October. So we are now on a path of direct collision with Iran. The Iranians cannot be impuned anymore. For 30 years, they were sitting back, launching at us all these militias with impunity. But since last April, they are not immune anymore. And now Iran feels the results of Israel's retaliation.
Ambassador, a hypothetical scenario for you to consider. Let's assume that before 13th of June, let's assume that President Trump's diplomatic negotiators were able to convince Iran to agree to halt their nuclear program. And let's assume that Iran would have accepted the same terms and conditions, if not more, as in the 2015 JCPOA agreement. Would Israel still have considered going ahead with the attacks?
Absolutely. I'll tell you why. Because the JCPOA was a plan or an agreement or a path that only put temporary limitations on the Iranian nuclear program. And after these temporary limitations are over, the Iranians would then be free to enrich uranium to an unspecified quantity, being able to actually build an arsenal of hundreds of nuclear weapons within days. And then sanctions wouldn't have helped. In addition to that, the JCPOA gave them relief from sanctions that would exacerbate their war of aggression in the region. So as much as we prefer diplomacy, and we would be very happy if Iran would limit its nuclear program in a verifiable way that would convince us they will never build a nuclear weapon, then of course, we would agree. The issue is that Iran never has agreed to that. And it's hypothetical because they wouldn't have said yes, and they didn't say yes, to President Trump's proposal to renounce uranium enrichment.
Sir, many critics say that the recent chain of events in the Israel is the result of what happened in the Israel parliament, where Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had to face a no confidence motion. And I'm quoting New York Times reporter Isabel Kushner. She wrote that it weakened, he proved the majority, but it weakened the position of the Netanyahu. Could it be the reason of the recent attacks, as the critics say? So how do you respond to such allegations? Do you find any base to it?
It's absolutely ridiculous. People who say that don't understand Israel at all, okay? Because there are votes of no confidence in Israel every few months, and you don't see a war being launched every few months of Israel just because the government is getting weaker. This is maybe you can have things like that in dictatorships, but we are a democracy. Not only that we are a democracy, we have a conscription army. It means that's the army of the people. Hundreds of thousands of people have to live their daily lives. It's not a regular army in order to defend the state of Israel. So you cannot launch a war in a state like Israel just because a leader has a conjunctural political problem. It cannot happen in Israel. It's complete nonsense.
Okay. And just extending my line of questioning, I would like to ask you how much damage Israel could produce from its attack, which started on June 13. Has Israel been able to stall the Iranian nuclear program completely, as we are talking on 16 June today? Please, sir.
So look, this war of extermination is something that we had to act upon in order to prevent our extermination, okay? Now, to what extent you are going to be able to neutralize the capability of the Iranians to build a weapon or to go back to this path, it's yet to be seen. We've been hitting their biggest enrichment facility in Natanz. We hit their conversion facility in Isfahan. There is a challenge with Fordo because it's under a mountain, and I don't know to what extent we'll be able to degrade it. No doubt that we have degraded their missile capability, but I think more than anything else, we have shown the Iranians not only that they cannot continue attacking us with impunity, but also that we are capable, under the current circumstances, to act again against them if they will go back to this path of building the capability to attack us. And therefore, this is a very important development, unprecedented, and I think gives an edge to Israel and gives us hope that actually, finally, the Iranian regime will really go for a diplomatic path and not try to deceive the international community as they have been doing so far.
And how do you see this, the reports where IAEA says that only overground structures have been erased, underground tunnels and facility are still intact? Do you still see, and can we still see some action from the Israel pertaining to those structures which are underground, which are under tunnels, which are still intact as per the IAEA?
I have no doubt that as long as these hostilities continue, Israel would do its best in order to degrade the Iranian capabilities furthermore. And time will tell. What is important regarding the IAEA is what happened before the attack, that the IAEA determined in an unequivocal way that Iran has been breaching not just the JCPOA, but the safeguards agreement, the basic agreement that any country signs with in the framework of the NPT, that actually they commit not to have nuclear-related clandestine activities. So the Iranians couldn't supply proof information to the IAEA explaining those clandestine activities. And therefore, the International Atomic Agency has determined that Iran is in non-compliance. Okay? What we expected the world to do is to automatically snap back sanctions against Iran. Look, we are in this situation because this regime, the NPT regime, has failed. And it's not the first time, by the way. Saddam Hussein has breached it. We had to take out Iraq. Syria, Assad has breached it. We had to take out the reactor in Syria. And now Iran, that is breaching it in a much more comprehensive way, because they have been able actually to get benefits from the NPT, from the IAEA, but then they cheated. So what Israel is doing actually is doing a huge, not, we are serving ourselves, but by serving our defense, we're doing a great service to the world, because the world hasn't been able, it completely failed in actually making sure that the international order prevails. And you have rogue states like Iraq of Saddam Hussein, like Syria, like Gaddafi's Libya, like Iran, that are actually making a mockery of world order. And Israel actually is restoring world order by taking this action.
Ambassador, building upon a part of your answer, do you think that regime change is a part of the end game for Israel here? I'm asking this question because as long as Iran remains a theocracy with either Ayatollah Khamenei or some other Ayatollah in power, do you feel that we can go back to having a system where Israel keeps feeling that Iran as a state policy is trying to eliminate Israel, and therefore a long-term solution could only be regime change?
Look, there's a difference between what you wish that would happen and what we are doing in order to, keep your interest promoted. Israel is a small country. We are concentrating in the defense and survival of our nation. We are not in the business of, executing plans of intervention in the political future of any of our neighboring countries. Of course, that we would prefer a situation that the Iranian people are freed. First of all, is because what they wish. They have been oppressed for the last 50 years almost, okay? Second, because this radical ideology can only bring to destruction. And you are right, that as long as this regime continues, the chances that they will try time and again to build the capability to destroy us is very high. But there is a gap between that and what we are going to allow ourselves to do as a democratic society.
So how would you respond to these US media reports that a Trump administration official has argued that Donald Trump stopped Israel from executing Ayatollah Khamenei?
That's complete nonsense. It's fake news.
Okay.
So US has no role in the Israel-Iran conflict right now?
No, of course it has. It has a huge role.
What?
First of all, we are very grateful to the United States because not only it has given us the means to defend ourselves, but also is backing us up. We are completely in sync with the United States. We are coordinated. I think that the backing that President Trump has given us is amazing. We also were very interested in his success. If the Iranians would have accepted the Trump's proposal to renounce enrichment, problem solved. The problem is that Iran, the regime there, they weren't capable or willing to accept that solution. So we are going to continue to work in sync with the United States. We do not expect the United States to solve our problems. Israel is a sovereign state, and we are proud for the fact that although we receive generous assistance, we are defending ourselves by ourselves, and we're not expecting others to defend us. So America will make the decisions that are best in the best interest. It seems though that our interests, most of the time, are pretty aligned.
Okay. When we are talking about the operation, and many people keep speculating why the name Operation Rising Lion. Because they are speculating to the 1979, before the Islamic revolution in Iran, they related the flag of Iran where there was a lion and a sun, and they are saying Israel has picked up the name just to remind the Iranians that, yeah, this was the era that you have to go back to, not to the Islamic rule that you are stuck in last 45 to 50 years. How do you respond to such speculations?
Well, people that are speculating that are probably pretty ignorant of our history, our heritage, and our Bible, because this is taken from a verse in our Bible that says that the people of Israel will rise as a lion. When they are united, they can rise, okay? And, lions are very typical as symbols to many civilizations, the Iranian civilization, the Jewish civilization, also the Hindu. What is the symbol of Hindu sovereignty of India? 4 lions, right?
Yeah.
So this is not very rare. It has nothing to do with the fact that also the Iranians use lions. Many countries use, they for example use falcons, or eagles. Many nations do that. So no, there's no connection.
Okay, sir, I have a question which is related to Strait of Hormuz. Iran, UAE, and Oman, they control the Strait of Hormuz, and even when it comes to the crude oil, so that route specifically becomes a bone of contention. And Iran, as the reports say, Iran is speculating just if it can block the route and the crude oil route to the world will be destroyed, or it will be rerouted, so the crude oil prices to the Brent and WTI, it will rise at a global level. India will be affected too. If that condition arises, what will be the Israel's plan of action? What do you think of? Because Iran is in thoughts of doing so.
I don't understand why Iran should do that. What is the connection to Israel? There's no connection. If Iran chooses to attack other countries, then other countries will have to think what they are going to do in order to retaliate. This has nothing to do with Israel.
Okay. So when we talk about this recent attacks on Iran, and when we see the retaliation from the Iran side, we heard so much about in the media the Iron Dome, but we see Iranians' missiles landing in the Tel Avivs. So how do you respond of to allegations that Iron Dome failed? Is it that so? Or there are people they are saying that alleging that Israel let a few missiles drop so that it can raise the escalation ladder. The issue can be raised up to the escalation ladder.
Well, actually, we weren't looking for an escalation ladder because we attacked Iran to preempt their execution of their plan of extermination of Israel. Okay, so we have enough excuses. Iran has been building this capability to destroy us for 30 years, and now they were escalating into a nuclear weapon. So we didn't need any excuse. Now, when it comes to missile defense, first of all, Iron Dome is not the answer for ballistic missiles. Iron Dome can work against threats that are in the short term. They can work against drones, against rockets and missiles, but not against ballistic missiles. Ballistic missiles can be dealt with a system called Arrow 3, and now we are also using a system called David Sling, that is a system that defends in the medium term.
Tell us more about it a little.
Well, when you have to plan your air defense, there are different layers that you can use. First of all, you can use your Air Force in order to intercept missiles and drones. Where are you doing that? In addition, you can use different type of anti-missile batteries. There is a difference between the long-term ones. The Arrow 3 intercepts the ballistic missile outside the atmosphere, okay? And then you have medium range and short range. Unfortunately, we cannot stop these ballistic missiles with the short-range systems because they are coming at a speed of 6 Mach, okay? it's impossible to, you have to hit them much farther away than when they approach the country. So this system is not perfect. So far, they've been firing about 400 ballistic missiles and a few hundreds of drones. We've been able to intercept all the drones, practically. But with ballistic missiles, it's harder. So even if you have a success of more than 90%, you would have several ballistic missiles that will penetrate, you see? So you are not going to neutralize those who are falling in open areas, but you are concentrating your effort in trying to bring down those who are coming to the urban areas. Unfortunately, we saw that we had hits. So far, we have more than 20 civilians dead, a few hundred injured. It's very unfortunate. But compared to what the Iranians wanted to do, and they stated they're going to destroy all cities, they failed to do so. So I can fairly say that these systems are pretty successful. Let's say that this multi-layered system is the best that today the world can offer.
Ambassador, there is this belief in several parts of the world, and quite rightly so, that at the root cause of the security-related threats that the state of Israel faces is the Palestinian national issue. That if that issue can be resolved amicably, let's say through a two-state solution, then states like Iran, states like Syria, parties like Hezbollah or Hamas won't have the justification to constantly keep on threatening your security. To put it simply, do you think that the long-term security of Israel is connected to allowing the emergence and existence of a Palestinian independent state?
I'll tell you why that logic is actually completely no.
Okay.
First, we have tried to solve our conflict with the Palestinians many times, and we offered the Palestinians a state in different occasions, and they refused. Okay? Because of the fact that we are the only non-Muslim nation in a sea of Arab and Muslim states, many dictatorships and radical Islamic regimes are using the issue of Israel as a pretext to amass power and to try to become dominant in the region. So we saw it in the past, during the time of the Pan-Arab movement. Now we are seeing it in the era of the Pan-Islamic movement. So you had tyrants like Saddam Hussein, like Assad, like the Iranians. Yes. And Hafez al-Assad, his father. So, and we have to look at what they are, what are the real intentions. Anybody that actually knows something about the Middle East, about West Asia, knows that the biggest fight in our region is not between Israel and the Palestinians. It's between Shiites and Sunnis.
Okay.
It's between a radical regime of Iran and the Sunni world. And this conflict doesn't go back 100 years. It goes back 1,400 years.
Yeah.
And it's basically a conflict between the direct descendants of the Prophet, his family, and their military leadership that actually received power when the Prophet passed away, and there was a conflict between them. So that conflict exists until today. And as a result of the collapse of the Arab state system, especially following the Arab Spring in 2011, what happened was that there was a huge vacuum in which you had forces pouring in. The Iranians that took over 4 Arab capitals, other radical elements like Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and the Muslim Brotherhood, okay? What they tried to do in Egypt, for example, very dangerous. So you have radical Islamists that are actually fighting to restore the caliphate. Okay? And this is the main reason that you have instability in the region. It has nothing to do with the Palestinian issue. Not only that within the Palestinian society, you have the same split you have in the rest of the Arab world. A fight between nationalists and Islamists. And that split has actually made it impossible to negotiate a peace deal with the Palestinians, because whatever we would have agreed with the Palestinian national movement would be completely rebuffed by the Islamists. And therefore, we are in a very difficult period in the history of West Asia that is suffering from endemic problems that have to do with radicalism, as I mentioned, with tribalism, with corruption, with explosion of population, overpopulation, with lack of resources, with climate change.
Yeah.
So whoever says that the root cause of the conflict in the region is the Israeli-Palestinian issue doesn't have a clue what it's talking about.
Okay. Let me come to the issue from a different angle then. All the points that you raised are quite valid. So let me ask you in this manner then. What is the Israeli state's approach going to be towards Gaza and West Bank?
What we believe is that we can create an alliance of stability and prosperity with those pragmatic nations in the Arab world that want to create a better world for themselves and their people.
Arab nations or the Palestinians?
All the Arab nations, including the Palestinians.
Okay.
And the Arab countries, instead of trying to knock your head on the wall and try to solve something that is impossible to solve, because of all the problems that I mentioned before, you can create a coalition of countries that actually will concentrate in building a better future. We have a peace agreement with Egypt, with Jordan. We have signed the Abraham Accords. And following the Abraham Accords, we joined a coalition of countries that are working in sync with the Central Command of the United States Army to defend ourselves from these threats that are coming from Iran and from the radical forces. We are monitoring the skies of the region. We can cooperate on a bilateral basis to fight terrorism. Okay? And as much as we succeed in that, we will show the Palestinian people that actually there is a hope and they can join the wagon of prosperity. They can join the wagon of success. And for that, it is worthwhile to renounce these radical ideologies and adopt a more pragmatic approach. So instead of trying to go from within out, we are going to try to go from outside in. And this is basically the challenge that we have. And I am sure that if we manage to defeat the radicals, the prospects of achieving peace in our region are going to expand rapidly.
Okay. As you mentioned, join the wagon. Would the wagon for the Palestinians remain in the land of West Bank, or would they have to move somewhere else, as the Trump plan suggests?
Look, people have been overstating the Trump plan. The Trump plan is basically very, very reasonable. If you are entangled in a small strip of land that has been devastated as a result of war, that has been torn apart because Hamas has been using civilian infrastructure in order to hide itself from, in order to launch attacks to Israel and hide itself behind civilians, then civilians have the right to, at least temporarily, go somewhere else until reconstruction happens. This is happening in many areas of the world. It happened in Ukraine, when Russia invaded, you had 5 million people leaving. It happened in Syria when the civil war started there. 12 million people were relocated, 6 million out of them left the country. Okay? You have it in many conflicts around the world. When there is a problem, people leave to safety and then they come back.
So they'll be allowed to come back if, let's say, minus Hamas?
Why not?
Look, would they be given their land back? This is the question.
Look, we left the Gaza Strip. You have to understand, we weren't occupying the Gaza Strip. Actually, the Israeli people, one of the reasons that we suffered this attack on the 7th of October is because we were in denial. We had, for 17 years, a radical Islamic movement controlling the Gaza Strip, radicalizing population, sequestrating every assistance they had in order to build a military machine to attack the state of Israel. And we didn't want to invade the Gaza Strip. But we were left with no choice after the 7th of October when they committed these terrible atrocities that we didn't see since the Holocaust. Okay? So we don't have an interest to stay in the Gaza Strip.
Okay.
We would like to have there a combination of a local force that is more pragmatic together with a coalition of moderate countries that would help them to rebuild their lives. But in the meantime, while Gaza is destroyed, why their brethren, Arab countries, cannot open their gates in order to host them. It's ridiculous. So they are the only people, the Palestinians. Everybody is talking about Palestinian rights. But then when it's their turn to help the Palestinian people, they refuse. It's completely illogic, okay? And in that context, Trump was saying, okay, let's try and build something good there. Allow those who want to leave, build something better, and then you have a future.
Okay. It's a misfortune on the part of the Palestinians that even the Arab states are not standing with them. But just to extend that whole solution, as you said, can something similar be extended to the Palestinians living in West Bank? That's the first question. That they can also imagine a future in West Bank where they'll have contiguity without the more than 110 settlements that are there. That's first question. And second, when you talk about a pragmatic force, would Mahmoud Abbas's Palestinian Authority be considered one of the pragmatic forces?
Well, first of all, there is a very, very hard issue with the PLO and the Fatah movement and Mahmoud Abbas because of mainly two reasons. First of all, it's because they haven't renounced support for terrorists. They are not using Hamas tactics, but they are actually idolizing their terrorists, they're supporting them and their families. They are indoctrinating a radical education in their system, and most of all, they have refused our peace offers in the past. So you cannot expect to have a situation that when two peoples have a claim for the same land, and one people keeps refusing any attempt to resolve the conflict and refusing any peace offer, that the other side will stay put and say, okay, we're going to leave you and your rights until the day that you decide to cooperate. No, it doesn't work like that. There's no vacuum. We have rights in the land of Israel. Part, the West Bank, what is called the West Bank, is our ancestral homeland. It's Judea and Samaria. So it's inconceivable that a Jew wouldn't have the right to live in Judea. So even if there are 100 resolutions in the UN saying that the Western Wall is Palestinian occupied land, it's nonsense. There is something that is more important than the UN Security Council, and that's customary international law. Under customary international law, you cannot, by any resolution in the UN, determine that a people don't have a connection to a land. And we have a connection to our land that is completely irrefutable. So if the Palestinians are going to continue refusing, making peace with us, they are going to lose their land. And they are going to lose more land. And I think that even that when they figure out that time is working against them and not for them, then they will come to the negotiating table. Because if they feel that whatever they do, whatever mistake they do, whatever violence they promote, their rights will be untouched, then they will continue fighting us forever until they succeed. But if they see that their chances of creating their own state and the size of the state and the contiguity of the state is going to be undermined, then maybe there is a chance that they will say, okay, maybe we should negotiate and finish this because we are on, otherwise time is going to work against us.
Mr. Ambassador, I have just a small couple of questions. One is related to some humanitarian crisis and civilian lives lost, which is in Gaza. As a result of a conflict between Israel and Hamas, we have seen reports of civilian lives lost, death of volunteers from the Doctors Without Borders, death of the journalists, and also with the death of Hamas members also. Israel have been the center of the allegations carrying out these attacks and stopping the human aid reaching to Gaza. How do you respond to such allegations, sir?
Well, first of all, what is happening in Gaza is no doubt very tragic. The loss of life is huge. But it's completely and uniquely connected to the fact that you had Hamas aggression and that Hamas is hiding behind civilians and actually abusing any rule, any norm that was written by civilization in order to keep fighting us. So they are hiding behind civilians, they are putting their headquarters under UN installations, they are putting their their command and control centers under hospitals. We saw it only a few weeks back when we hit Mohammad Sinwar, the military commander, and he was hiding under a hospital. They are using ambulances in order to move terrorists. They are disguising as press. And then, it's ridiculous. They are saying, we killed 230 journalists. But these people are Hamas operatives. They are not journalists. They're just putting vests of the journalists. So the question is whether you are going to believe this nonsense or not. At the end of the day, Israel has been using, more than any country in the world, tactics to try to minimize human life, to minimize human life loss. And we've been doing that by calling people to go out of harm's way, calling them on the phone, sending them leaflets, encouraging in any way possible to distance themselves, to go to safe areas. And guess what? Hamas infiltrates the safe areas and hides behind them. They just take out their uniform and they try to blend in the population. But even despite all of that, the ratio of people that have been killed, when you compare the number of terrorists to the number of civilians, is much lower than any other comparable conflict in a dense urban population. Like, for example, take Mosul. In Mosul, when the Western armies were fighting ISIS together with Iraqi forces, the ratio of fatalities was 8 civilians for a terrorist. Here you have a ratio of about 1 to 1, 1 to 1.5. So it's a huge success from a tactical point of view. It is right that any life loss is a disaster, is terrible. In our culture, one soul is like the entire universe. So it's very unfortunate that so many people have died, but actually, when you look at it from a military tactic point of view, it's a huge success in minimizing the loss of life. And yes, there are many reports, but these reports are being written by biased people, people that actually are appointed, if it's in the framework of the UN, by countries that outnumber us, or by people that don't have any understanding of how warfare is being done.
I would just pin you for a brief, if you can give me a brief modus operandi, how do you identify in that crowd of Gaza, which is press and which is imposing as a press person, who is a doctor, who is imposing as a doctor? I'm just trying to have a brief.
It's very difficult. You have to act according to intelligence. You have to try to identify people. You have to try to locate people. Many times also mistakes occur. It's a war zone. It's very difficult to deal with that. Now, you asked also about the humanitarian assistance. We have groups within our security forces that are monitoring the situation all the time, and we have made sure that the Palestinian people will not suffer from hunger. 20 months into this conflict, we have seen that humanitarian assistance has been entering, and when we stopped the humanitarian assistance for a period of time, it was in order to prevent a situation in which Hamas sequestrates the humanitarian assistance and then sells it to the population as a mode to continue the grip on the population. So right now we established, when we saw that the assistance is dwindling, because a lot of assistance entered during the ceasefire period, in that period we developed a new mechanism of humanitarian assistance that we control, that actually has already given more than 20 million meals to the Palestinians since its inception less than a month ago. And in addition to that, we are seeing that those international organizations that want to cooperate with us, we help them to give assistance to groups inside the Gaza Strip that oppose Hamas, because we already are having that. Some of the people in Gaza are sick and tired of Hamas. They would like to get rid of Hamas, but Hamas continues terrorizing them. So right now, militarily, we are controlling more or less 50% of the Gaza Strip. We are very cautious because we don't want to hurt our hostages. We've been able to liberate about 200 hostages. We are still having 53, out of them about 20 alive. And we will continue putting military pressure, but also willing to negotiate in order to bring the hostages back. But if there is one thing that we are not going to agree, is for Hamas to stay in power in the Gaza Strip, because we know that if they do, the countdown for the next 7th of October is just a matter of time. Not just because we speculate about it, it's because the leaders of Hamas have stated that openly, that they want to do another 7th of October and another 7th of October. We are not going to allow that.
Last question, sir, is about the India's role in the de-escalating the situation, be it Israel and Iran conflict, where we have partnership with Israel regarding tech and defense, the major fronts, and Iran, be it the Chabahar port. How do you see India in de-escalating this situation and India's position with regard to Israel and Hamas conflict, where India has abstained from the voting in UNGA over the Gaza ceasefire? Please, sir, how do you see India's role? And what do you expect actually?
First of all, the degree of cooperation we have with India is only expanding and getting deeper. We have common challenges. We are developing the means and the capabilities to defend ourselves against those challenges. And you see that the numbers of joint ventures in the framework of the Make in India policy is only growing. We're producing together different systems, like drones, autonomous vehicles, many other things. And this, I think, is in the interest of both countries. And this trust has been built in the last few decades. And it's a very deep trust. It's a very good friendship. It's a strategic partnership. Now, we believe that India has a great role to play in our region, because India is a rising power. It's now the 4th economy in the world. It's going to be in 2 years the 3rd economy in the world. It's planning to sign trade agreements with a big...
I'm sorry to interrupt you. The Niti Aayog actually clarified itself that it's not yet 4th economy, but it will be 4th economy until the end of this year. Please continue.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you're getting there, because basically your economy is growing faster than other economies in the world. So the bottom line is that the rest of the world is going to benefit from the rise of India, because we can do trade with India and we can work with India. And India can be part of many projects of development in our region. India is supplying a lot of workforce in the region. And we were encouraged, following the visit of Prime Minister Modi to Washington, to see that India is interested to implement the IMEC project. This is a project of connectivity that is going to move a lot of merchandise from east to west and vice versa. But on top of that, it has the potential of including many other beneficial projects, like in energy, communication, and many other things. So this is a stabilizing factor. The rise of a democratic power that has the capability to generate prosperity is something that is going to contribute to the security and the stability of our region. We are welcoming that, and we are hopeful that these hostilities that we are suffering as a result of the 7th of October and this war of extermination that the Iranians have launched against us, that this will be soon over. We'll be able to re-engage in the things that we are interested in engaging, and the things that we are good at: developing technology, developing a good life, enjoying life. And Israel is a great partner for that, because we have the energy to do it, we have the innovative spirit, we have the energy, and I feel this vibe in India as well. You have a young generation that is looking forward.
Still, I'm waiting for the comment on how India can help and de-escalate the situation.
Well, as I told you, by the fact that you are going to generate all this economic activity is going to contribute to the prosperity of the region. So if you wouldn't have all this Indian activity, actually, we wouldn't have this opportunity. So it's not just a matter of diplomacy, of solving conflicts or whatever. It's the question to what extent you can engage in something that generates value, okay? Instead of generating war, generating destruction. So you are on the positive side of history. And this is a great contribution for our region. This is exactly what we need.
Thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully we'll have a long conversation very soon on the various topics we have. We have a time constraint, so we can't continue further. ललन टॉप पे आप ये बातचीत देख रहे थे. अपनी राय हमें कमेंट सेक्शन में ज़रूर बताइएगा. इस मुद्दे पे हमारी कवरेज जारी रहेगी. आपका बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया.